My sister spent my house fund on a car, then my parents shocked me by taking her side. Welcome back with a new real shock story. Before we start, comment and tell me which city you're watching from. At the end, don't forget to subscribe and rate it from 0 to 10. Let's enjoy the story, everyone.
I never thought I'd wake up one morning to find my whole world tilted. I mean, I always knew my sister could be selfish, but this was something else. I was sitting at my desk last night, looking at the budget I'd been keeping for years. Every dollar I saved felt like a promise that I'd have my own place, a place where I could finally feel safe, independent, and proud. It was supposed to be my future, my dream house. I worked 2 jobs to build that little fund, pinching pennies and skipping things I wanted, telling myself it was worth it, until I woke up to an empty dream. The first thing I noticed that morning was a weird silence in the house. The sound of Mom and Dad arguing usually drifted down the hallway before breakfast, but today there was nothing. I walked into the kitchen and my stomach dropped. My parents were sitting there with my sister, her smug smile hitting me harder than any punch could. In front of them was a receipt for a car. Not just any car, a flashy one, a brand new shiny car. My stomach knotted as my eyes widened. I didn't need to ask who had paid for it. I already knew. You... what? I finally managed to choke out, my voice trembling. My sister just laughed. Not a nervous laugh, not even a guilty one. It was that careless, victorious laugh that made me want to scream. My mom looked at me with that calm, dismissive expression she always wore when she didn't want to deal with something. Alec, she needed the car. It was important. It was my money, I said, voice rising, every word tasting like betrayal. My house fund. I worked for years. She's your sister, my dad interrupted. Family helps family. But in that moment, it didn't feel like family. It felt like my whole life had been stolen while I slept. My hands were shaking as I grabbed my phone to check the account. Every dollar I saved, every sacrifice I'd made, gone. I was furious. By morning, I knew I couldn't just sit there. I had to confront them again. I wasn't sure what I would say or if they would even listen. But something inside me was burning for justice. I walked downstairs, my hands clenched into fists, my heart pounding in my ears. Breakfast was quiet again. My sister sat across the table, scrolling on her phone, pretending nothing happened. My parents avoided my eyes. "Can we talk?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. My mom looked up slowly, sighing. "Alec, we already talked. There's nothing more to say." "No," I said, shaking my head. "You don't understand. This isn't just about the car. This is about the money I worked years for. It's about the trust you broke. You just took it without asking me. You didn't even think to talk to me about it." My sister laughed softly. "You're dramatic. It's just money." Just money. My stomach twisted. Years of saving, skipping things I wanted, turning down nights out, working extra shifts, all so I could finally have something of my own. And now, gone. And they were acting like it was nothing. That day, I decided to dig deeper. I went to my bank account and started going through the transactions. My heart sank when I saw it. The exact amount I had saved, gone, transferred in one single day. My hands trembled as I realized this wasn't a misunderstanding. This was deliberate. And worse, no one cared to explain why. I asked my parents again that evening. "Why? Why would you let her take it? Why not talk to me?" My dad avoided my gaze. My mom said softly, "Alec, she needed it. You have to understand." "I understand?" "No, I don't. She needed it more than me?" That's not for you to decide. That's my money. The silence that followed was thick, heavy. My sister just smiled faintly, but I saw it. That look in her eyes, the one that said she knew exactly what she'd done and didn't care. The next morning, I woke up with one thought ringing in my head. I had to act. I couldn't keep letting this eat away at me quietly. My mind raced with possibilities, but the truth was, I had no real plan. All I knew was that I couldn't let my sister and parents erase years of my hard work without fighting back. I started the day by going to my old notebook, the one where I'd written my goals when I first began saving. I flipped through the pages, each one a memory, a promise to myself. I had saved every penny from my part-time jobs, every shift at the cafe, every odd job I could find, all for the dream of owning a home. And now it was gone. Just like that, I knew confronting them again wouldn't work. They had already made their decision. So I started gathering proof, bank statements, receipts, dates. I copied everything, organizing it in a way that would clearly show the truth. My hands shook as I worked. Part of me wanted to cry. Another part wanted to scream. That evening, I sat quietly in my room, staring at the evidence spread before me. My phone vibrated. It was my best friend, asking if I wanted to meet. I wanted to say no, to bury myself in my anger and grief. But I said yes. I needed someone who would listen without judgment. At the cafe later that night, I told her everything. She listened quietly, sipping her coffee, then leaned forward. Alec, this isn't just about the money. It's about respect. They crossed a line. You can't let them just erase everything you've worked for. Her words hit me hard. She was right. This wasn't just about a house fund anymore. This was about my voice, my dignity. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that if I stayed silent now, I would regret it forever. The next morning, I confronted my parents again. This time, I wasn't pleading. I was prepared. I laid the documents on the table between us. My voice was steady, though inside, my heart was pounding. Look at this. You know this isn't right. This is my money. And you didn't even ask me. Why? My dad looked away. My mom's eyes filled with something I didn't expect. Guilt. But before she could speak, my sister leaned in. Alex, stop. You're making this bigger than it is. I needed that money. It's already done. No, I said, louder than I intended. It's not done. You can't just take what's mine and expect it to be okay. You don't get to decide what's right for me. The room fell silent again. My parents exchanged looks, and I could see the tension between them. But instead of supporting me, they sided with her. I felt a sharp pang of betrayal. I wasn't just fighting for my money anymore. I was fighting for respect, for being heard. That night, I lay awake again, replaying the confrontation in my mind. I felt a storm of emotions, anger, sadness, disbelief. But underneath it all was determination. I knew I couldn't stop. My house fund was gone, but my fight wasn't. I started researching. I read stories of people who had faced betrayal within their families. People who had fought for what was right despite overwhelming odds. Some won, some didn't. But every single one of them had something in common. They refused to stay silent. That gave me a strange kind of courage. I realized I wasn't just fighting for myself. I was fighting for everyone who had been silenced, ignored, or taken advantage of. The next morning, I made a decision. I wasn't going to beg anymore. I wasn't going to plead. I was going to make them see what they had done. And if they still refused to listen, I would take this fight further. I told myself I would stand my ground, no matter what. I didn't know how this battle would end, but I knew I couldn't walk away. Not now. Because this wasn't just about a car, or money, or even a house. This was about trust, about justice, about being valued as a person. And I was done being invisible. The next few days were tense. Every morning, I woke up with the same knot in my stomach, a mix of anger, fear, and uncertainty. I could still hear my sister's voice in my head, brushing me off like I was making a big deal out of nothing. But it wasn't nothing. Not to me. Not anymore. I spent those days preparing. I gathered everything I had, the bank statements, the messages, the little notes I had kept for myself, and put them into a folder. I even wrote down what I wanted to say if I had another chance to confront them. My mind was like a storm, each thought sharper than the last. That evening, I stood in front of my bedroom mirror rehearsing. "This is my money. You had no right." I said it again, slower this time, letting the words sink in. I could feel the tremor in my voice, but I also felt something stronger. Determination. Later, I went into the living room. My parents were there, quiet, watching TV. My sister was on her phone, completely unaware of what I was about to do. I took a deep breath and walked over. My folder clutched in my hand felt heavier than it actually was. "I want to talk," I said firmly. They looked at me, confused. I placed the folder on the coffee table and opened it. "Look at this. Every penny I saved. Every effort I made. It's all gone because you decided it was okay to take it without asking." My voice broke slightly, but I pushed on. "This isn't just about money. It's about respect. It's about trust. And you destroyed both." My parents exchanged glances again. My dad opened his mouth, then closed it. My mom's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't speak. My sister smirked. "Alec, it was just money. You'll be okay." That smirk burned into me. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. It's never just money when it comes to something you've worked for. You don't get to decide what's important to me. My sister rolled her eyes, but I wasn't finished. I laid out the evidence on E/1, explaining how I had saved every bit of it, how I had sacrificed small things for years just to make this dream possible. The room grew quiet. Then my mom spoke. Her voice was quiet but firm. "Alec, we know you worked hard, but we thought it was for the family. You should understand that." That line hit me like a punch. "For the family?" I repeated. "This was my choice, my future. You erased it without even asking." My voice shook now, the words heavy with years of frustration and hurt. My dad stood up. "Alec, we didn't mean to hurt you. We thought it was for everyone." "But it wasn't my choice," I yelled. "It was mine. You took my dreams and acted like they didn't matter." The tension in the room was suffocating. My sister looked away. My parents avoided my gaze. I could feel tears burning in my eyes, but I refused to cry in front of them. I needed to stay strong. I took a deep breath and said, "I'm going to make sure you understand what this means. I can't just let this go." That night, I lay in bed, unable to sleep. My mind kept replaying every word, every look. I felt both terrified and alive. I knew the next step I took would change everything. By morning, I had made up my mind. I wasn't going to let this go quietly. I was going to take my story public. Not for revenge, but for justice. For myself. For anyone who had ever been silenced in their own home. I started writing. I wrote about the sacrifices I had made, about the betrayal, about how I felt invisible in my own family. My hands shook as I typed, but I couldn't stop. This was my truth. When I finished, I stared at the screen. My heart was pounding. I knew that once I hit post, there was no turning back. But deep inside, I felt a strange sense of relief. I wasn't alone anymore. That afternoon, I posted my story online. I didn't hide my name. I didn't hide my pain. I told the world what happened. And within hours, people started responding. Some with support, others with doubt. But I didn't care. I had spoken my truth. Later that night, my phone blew up with notifications. My parents had seen it. My sister had seen it. The living room was tense when I got home. No one said anything, but I knew they had read it. I could see it in their eyes. That moment was electric. Everything had changed. This wasn't just about my house fund anymore. This was about the line I had drawn. This was about making them understand that what they did wasn't right. And deep down, I knew one thing. The hardest part was yet to come. The next morning felt heavier than the night before. The air in the house was thick, like we were all carrying something too painful to say out loud. My parents avoided looking at me. My sister barely looked up from her phone. But I knew something had shifted. This wasn't just a family argument anymore. It was a turning point. I went to the kitchen, coffee in hand, and they were there. Silence stretched between us, broken only by the sound of the coffee machine. Finally, my mom spoke. Her voice was quiet, strained. "Alik, we saw what you posted." I didn't answer. My eyes stayed on my coffee mug. I wasn't ready to speak, not yet. She continued. "We didn't understand. We thought we were helping. We didn't realize how much this meant to you." Her voice cracked, and I felt something shift in her tone. For the first time, I felt her pain, not as justification, but as acknowledgement. My sister rolled her eyes. "You made this a huge deal. I was just trying to help." Her words felt cold, dismissive. And I realized something. This wasn't just about money. This was about respect, trust, and being heard. I set my coffee down and spoke softly but firmly. "It wasn't your choice to make. You took my dream without asking, and that hurt me more than anything." My dad's shoulders slumped. "We were wrong, Alec. I see that now. We should have asked you first." His voice was quiet, but it held sincerity. For the first time that week, my anger softened, but the hurt remained. "It's not just about saying sorry," I said. "It's about understanding why it mattered to me." There was silence again. I could feel the weight of that silence pressing down on all of us. The unspoken truth lingered in the room. That trust once broken was hard to rebuild. Later that evening, I sat in my room and read the comments under my post. People were sharing their own stories. Stories of betrayal, of sacrifice, of being unheard. I felt a strange connection to each of them. This wasn't just my story anymore. It was part of something bigger. I realized then that what happened to me wasn't just about a lost house fund. It was about having a voice and fighting to be heard, about justice, fairness, and standing up for yourself, even when those closest to you don't understand. Over the next few days, the conversation in our house slowly began to change. My parents spoke more openly, asking questions, listening without defending themselves. My sister was quieter, though I could see her glances toward me carried a mixture of guilt and confusion. One night, my mum came into my room. She sat on the edge of my bed and said, "I don't know if we can fix this overnight, but I want to try. I want to understand you better." Her words didn't erase the pain, but they softened the wound. I nodded, letting the tears come quietly. I realized this wasn't the end. It was the start of something. The whole ordeal taught me something powerful, that sometimes the hardest battles are fought within your own home, that standing up for yourself can feel like standing alone, but it can also inspire others to speak their truth. And I knew deep down that this story wasn't just mine. It was for everyone who had ever been ignored, dismissed, or betrayed by someone they trusted. That's why I kept sharing it. Not for empathy, not for attention, but to remind people that their voice matters, that their dreams matter, that they deserve to be heard. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this: silence protects the wrongdoer, but speaking your truth protects you. So I ask you, what would you do if someone took something that was your dream? Would you speak up? Or would you let it go quietly? Because sometimes, speaking your truth is the only way to make sure it's never taken again.